Good evening and welcome to tonight's production of Agamemnon 2.0 by the Riot Performing Arts Company. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you to please shut off your cell phones and turn off any other electronic devices, as the glare from the screens can be a distraction for both audience and actors. But I'd also like to remind you that the two fire exits in this building are the two doors that you guys came in from originally, and we would invite you to stick around after the show for a brief talkback with the cast and crew. Thank you and enjoy the show.
This was open fields.
There's some comfort in the memory of it, if it's true.
I was here. I know it to be true.
But one remembers and what is true are so seldom the same.
These days, even now, you can look out from here and know which of these farms is recorded in the Domesday Book and which of them came after.
Once, on this familiar spot of ground, came other men and women as actual as we are today, thinking their own thoughts, feeling their own passions, now gone as utterly as we ourselves shall be like ghosts in cockcrow. One time, long ago, not far from here, the poet Sinai held a dinner for his friends at a palace in the hills across the valley. Sinai stepped out onto the terrace for a moment for a breath of air, and in that moment, an earthquake shook the villa and brought it to the ground. All Sinai's friends were crushed to death, their bodies mangled and torn apart, not even their own families could recognize them. But Sinai could recall in his mind's eye where each of his friends had been sitting at the time. They were then recalled one by one, pulled out from the rubble, and identified. And it was in that moment came the beginning of mankind's desire to remember exactly how the world had been at one moment or another. And so, Sagadai instructed his friends how to build their own palaces in memory, how to build each room, how to furnish these rooms with the faces and figures of their friends, events of their lives, their treasures, books, poems, each room given things of singular beauty or distinctive ugliness to make them vivid, unforgettable. Memories disfigured, faces splashed with paint or stained with blood. Each of these things suspended in a geometry of memory, thought, and feeling.
10 years ago, Agamemnon and Menelaus left this spot for Alpus in search of Helen, taken from her husband Menelaus back to Troy by Paris.
Like any slave.
Or piece of property.
It's a sort of love story, really. Or 1,000 love stories all knit up into one. The stories of these men and their love of entangling themselves with women. Take this one home, throw the other away. Take this one back, take another instead. Break this law or murder all these.
1,000 ships, an entire army of determined men set forth to bring her back.
Like fiends of hell.
And to destroy the Trojans for the crime they've done by sheltering Paris.
And yet, these fiends of hell have miscalculated their support and were stranded at home.
We request to negotiate. We come to you unarmed. We desire to communicate. You cannot do us harm.
We'd rather make our children
We request to negotiate.
martyrs than murderers.
We come to you unarmed.
We'd rather make our children
We desire to communicate.
white flag warriors.
You cannot do us harm.
This is love. This is not treason. This is love. This is not treason.
We seek ways to not be liable. We claim to speak for a higher truth. You say war is necessary. We say war is proud of you.
Calchas approached Agamemnon, saying,
If you would lead other men's children into war and bloodshed, then you must be the first. Before any man's child is killed, if one of your own dies, then the ships may sail to Troy.
So he did.
and so he did. Summoned his wife Clytemnestra to Aulis, where their daughter Iphigenia was to be wedded to Achilles. Clytemnestra invited their daughter to the shore to celebrate, and there Agamemnon had her murdered.
Caught in this dilemma between private love and public duty.
Father's love and his lust for power. Caught in this
so brought down a curse on himself and his army, even as they sailed to victory.
However, man is measured by how much blood and treasure he has the authority to waste.
I saw them sail.
Not fit to sail with them, but fit to stay at home and gossip.
To tell their stories over and over again so we may understand.
10 years they fought.
Till now, the rains wash away the battlefield, and skulls rise up from the shallow graves, so that both sides cry out for an end.
One time, I was walking through a village in the mid-afternoon. I was walking through the streets among the empty houses. The village was overgrown with tall weeds, and yet the buildings were intact. I then walked under a dry stone arch. As I walked, I then stopped abruptly. I felt the presence of someone looking down at me. I turned around. Up there on top of the tower house, out on an open terrace, was a woman dressed in black, nailed down in the center, unable to move one way or another. She was bent almost double, halfway between standing and sitting, her body rocking ever so slightly, staring out into the olive terraces, the sun glaring off 1,000 rocks. She looked toward me. I greeted her, but I could not tell whether she looked back at me or only nodded her head with the rocking of her body. An eternal clock. Sedentary, perfect. Suffering the curse of those caught in an eternal present, unable to awaken.
Sometimes when I'm alone, I take up a dialogue with the past, listening closely for the voices of those who have left us. I touch the stones with their inscriptions of past fates, inscriptions partially erased, yet still discernible. I call it these shades, these ghosts, these silent bodies, hoping that they might feed on our passions and we might learn the sources of our present woes. Clytemnestra, the queen.
I dreamed last night that a torch was lit on Mount Ida, and Hephaestus got a fire from the light to Lemnos, and then to Athos. The fire flew from torch to torch, mountaintop to mountaintop, island to island across the sea like new stars or suns, to Makistos, Asopus, Cytherea, Aulis, and from Aulis home to me. I love the clouds, any clouds, purple, white, black clouds, rain clouds when they are driven by the wind, a thin wisp of cloud across a bright moon. What does this mean?
What could it be?
And then, after the fire came home, I dreamed we spread the bones out in the sunlight. They say if someone's flesh don't cling to their bones that they've done many a bad thing. But these were clean bones, pure white. We brought them into the house in the afternoon, and we led them through room after room, going backwards through the seasons many years. And then we placed them next to the hearth, and there we heard them sing.
It's incredible where you can go to your mind.
These days, they say, men and women are afraid to sing songs they know from childhood, for fear they will die of a longing for the past. What does this mean?
Today, the Greeks hold Troy.
What?
Troy has fallen. Greece has won. Our soldiers are coming home.
How do you know this?
I don't. The dreamer does. You.
There have been rumors.
It could mean anything. This is a lot to know from the images of a fevered mind.
This, then, is the meaning of all the rest. That men and women run through the streets shot full of happiness and horror. Joy and sorrow mingle equally, like vinegar and oil in one cup, unreconciled. These are Greeks and Trojans, victors and their prey, falling upon one another, equal victims of their violence. How could a person bring himself to kill another? To take another human life, snuff it out, this precious thing, destroy it forever? I don't understand it. So all that remains is the journey home. All that remains is the welcoming of conquerors. Sometimes the most disagreeable sights come unbidden to one's mind. A young girl, no more than 13 years of age, with some sort of pain in her chest, something no one knows, no one can identify it. Yet, it makes the girl lose all her appetite. ground. You want to reach out to her, or say, watch out. Your hand comes up as though to say something. And then, of course, you feel foolish when you are only trying to help. One time, I wrote down a poem I had heard and I left it on a table. One of the maids came by, read it out loud so clumsily, and I felt how devastating it is to hear a poem rattled off without any proper feeling. These words you sometimes hear, a mother or a father to a child, I love you, dear, just rattled off so that your heart could break, or you could choke with rage. These times we live in, an eternal present, never an evening of peace.
One time I dreamed that I turned into the river's Andrews in Troy. I bled for 10 years, but still I didn't die because the river is immortal.
To see a river in a dream is a bad sign for the narrative. Dead ox is even worse. Black mares will signify a famine. A hare signifies an unlucky journey. The sight of a dove bespeaks involvement. A mouse, propitious circumstance. To hold a sparrow struggling in your hand forebodes mischief. To swallow a bunch of grapes indicates rain. Withered trees, the uselessness of labor.
You might see two boys playing with a dead bird, an old woman feeding a cat, a poster for a concert, a spent bullet casing, a music box, a quill pen, or some faded thing.
And one may wonder whether this signifies the past or the future, or whether it is only meant to fill us with a longing for such moments of life in the afternoon, and wishing they could go on forever.
Are you soldiers?
Of the war?
Of the war in Troy?
No.
Not of that war.
You've returned from Troy? My ship was the first to land. There are others with me. Not many. There was a storm, some boats went down, and King Agamemnon, he's on his way.
And Menelaus?
I don't know. Like I said, some boats went down. Of course, I was only a cog in the wheel, but I myself never mistreated a prisoner. Far less killed one. They left their cattle in the stables, dinner on the tables. Of course, of those who had fallen, not all were dead. Some were clawing at their clothes or shrieking or crawling over the motionless bodies of those who were dead. Some spurting blood, hands clutching under torn flesh, arms moving puppet-like. We paused for a moment by the river of time, as they said. Sucked the honey from the bone marrows of strangers and smeared it across their faces. Stirred up some blood. And on the day of judgment, my fellows and I who fought in this war will collect our scattered bones, and we'll submit them for roll call, and we'll be told to advance. And we'll do it. Man is spirit, but what is spirit? Spirit is the self, but what is the self? Man is the epitome of the infinite and the finite, of the temporal and the eternal, of freedom and necessity.
What a lie to say that fortune favors the bold. Fortune favors the Cretans and the madmen. Fortune is on the side of savages.
What would you know? The Roman to an army in the field, a man is weaned from whatever access of tenderness toward his precious person that he may bring with him. These are visions I can see at any time, of day or night. Eyes open or eyes closed. Where there were houses, we left rubble, smoldering wood piles, ulcers, festering on naked terrain. We smashed away the hordes of men and women raging and beating and hunting. We drove them across the countryside like frightened horses. We set fire to their houses. We hurled their corpses into wells. Everything that came to hand, we ruined. Our hearts were emptied of human feeling. We burned whatever we could. There comes a time you can't distinguish the images of day from night.
The human body is nothing but a product of semen and blood, a meal for death, a dwelling place for suffering, a tavern for disease. A man may know all of this, and yet from lack of judgment, drowning in a sea of ignorance, he yearns for love, for women, and for power.
In the aftermath, one feels the chill in the countryside, the low-lying white mist, shards of farmhouses in the distance, shattered stone, no grass, no ruins, empty streets, and silence. No bird, no animal, no living thing broke the silence. No dogs, no children, not one stone stacked upon another.
chance to survive and who didn't. Where the safe places were, who was born under a lucky star.
It's all very complicated. All a matter of the complicity of all parties, a result of ancient feuds. It's difficult to pin the blame.
A light ash of gold covering the field. Victors covered in their glory. Dust, golden dust. This was the precious dust. One had the impression of having passed out of the modern world back into a vanished civilization. Colors of the dead and faces changed from white to yellow-gray, to red to purple, to cream to black, to slip. So I brought home these words to be inscribed in some public place. The Argive army conquered Troy and brought home over land and sea these hard-won spoils, the pride and joy of ancient palaces, to be trophies of victory and grace the halls of the Hellene race.
There's no longer a zoo in Troy, they say, that even those innocent animals were killed.
I don't know anything about that.
The last grizzly bear has died, they say.
I don't know anything about that.
They say that there are still a few horses roaming that no man's land, but most of them were caught and butchered.
That's not true.
I've been told that a man saw a peacock and a white swan killed for no good reason at all.
There are always rumors. By definition, none of them are true.
We are told there are witnesses to some of these things.
Make of it what you will. But for my part, I remember none of it. And as for me and for my friends, we're finished. Coming home stripped of whatever it was we had. Before, the quiet moments in between battle were not moments of peace, but periods of mounting tension, anticipating the release. Now, there will be no release. Just the waiting. Sensation is dead. Time rolls on, but it has lost whatever it had that made it brilliant.
Now at last, this long war is over. The most pervasive feeling of those who fought it is just anxiety about the peace.
It won't have long to wait. There is no such thing as peace. Peace is nothing but an armistice in a war that never ends.
These wars, declared by old men who send their young out to die,
Clutching a weapon from sleep comes easily. It's in our blood. The same gesture with which Ice Age man first took hold of his axe of stone.
there was a time when you could come in from the fields and expect to see signs of human occupation everywhere. Fire still glowing in the fireplace, and somebody meant to come right back. Book sitting face down on the window seat, a paint box with a glass of cloudy water next to it, some flowers in a nice cut glass vase, an unfinished game of solitaire, plastic soldiers or building blocks on the floor. This was the inner life, not to be found in some bare inscriptions, ancestral lists, or great events.
Agamemnon,
Like a ghost.
How was one supposed to agree to vision such as this? With pity or with praise?
Why not say it outright? 10 years ago, when you left for Troy, we thought you were wrong. Misguided. Wrong.
those times are past.
Agamemnon, welcome home.
Thank you. I bring a conqueror's greetings, my lord. We brought a just revenge for Troy. For the Trojans' rape of Helen, we have made the city pay a woman's price. We have ground that city's bones. We have turned its walls into dust. And even now, smoke still rises to mark that great city's fall. Come face to face with it is to be a man.
We were told that even innocent children were killed in this war. Young girls even.
That's not true. Not to my knowledge. It's not something our men would have done.
We were told that men took pleasure in breaking into private homes, dragging women out into the streets, and
That's not true. Perhaps one or two. A war's a school of strenuous life. A war's a school of heroism.
I was told of one man who lifted by that had fallen to the floor and placed her on the couch. She stretched out her arms to protect herself.
These stories are not true. I've heard such things myself. The world is a bleeding wound when it comes to that.
One conversation was quoted to me between a soldier and a woman.
I'd like to hear your opinion, as an artist. About what? About whether you have a perfect figure?
The story is that he had insisted that she let her gown drop to the floor.
These are fictions made up by demented people. All these stories that you hear. What do you think is true? Everything that exists in this world destroys itself when it comes to that. Both sex and violence involve violent pressing into another person. Both leave the other body irreparably changed.
Everything that seemed impossible yesterday is now entirely possible today.
One group of soldiers caught a mule aid from the zoo and tied up with ropes. She struggled to break free, but trussed up like a chicken, legs folded back against her body, tied upside down to a stake planted into the middle of a pit, howling and swallowing dirt, its anus screaming pink and pointed at the sky like a flower. And all the men around the pit, stripped naked for the work and sweating with pleasure and anticipation, armed with shovels, filling the pit with dirt, burying the ape alive. Its screams choked on the dirt, until all that remains is the radiant flower of its anus touched by gentle, white fingers. Its violently contracted to helpless as it strangles on the dirt. And all will stand around the pit and watch, overcome by heat and stupor, their throats choked by sighs and crying out, eyes moist with tears.
Who will pay for this?
Take any war by itself, and it makes no sense. The meaning of any moment in history cannot appear all at once. Only the succession of moments can become clear.
This is how men are.
In war, one may take a child by its feet, who's dead, carry it out to the courtyard, swing around in an arc, and smash its head against a tree. Or take a girl in her mother's arms, tear her in half, like a rag. These girls that look to you like that now, we look to the future, to the just rewards of peace, to the restoration of the civic order, of the comforts of a secure home and family, the love of children, the fruits and labors of peacetime, of building, of nurturing our children, of passing down to a new generation the values we all cherish. The mornings of shared expectation, long afternoons of idle play, of company in the evenings, the pleasures of the table, of polite conversation, delights of the mind, of music and sweet sleep, a world restored.
Agamemnon, my lord and husband.
Clytemnestra,
There was a rumor that you'd come back with another woman, but I see that's not true.
no.
Welcome home. Pardon me. Welcome home. What shall I tell you all at once of these 10 years that you've been gone?
What shall I?
10 years alone. Each day new rumors of your death. Each traveler bearing news worse than the last. To see you now, my eyes fill with tears to know relief from all my sorrow. It's finally within my reach at last. So many times wavering between life and death, I have been overwrought with despair. So our child is gone, not standing here with us on your day of victory. Why do you start? I mean Orestes. During an arrest here at home, if he did not return, I sent him away where he would be safe. Of all the many things I find agreeable, I think none is so comforting as to when one has an unsettling dream and wonders what it can mean. In great anxiety, one consults a psychic and is told it has no special significance at all. I've watched for you every night. My eyes still burn with watching for you, praying for your return. I worked by the bed I kept for you alone. In my dreams, I saw this moment come. I never let it die. My husband, come home with me. Come to our bed, come lie with me in my arms forever. But wait, come, have the honor that is due to you. Walk into your home on these tapestries. I meant to write you a poem welcoming you home, something that others would remember and copy down in their diaries. Though this is something that has never happened to me, I can imagine how pleasing it must be. But even so, without a poem, walk into your home on these tapestries.
Clytemnestra, my wife, thank you for your compassion passion and your understanding and your praise. I'm exhausted and I would lie down. But no, thank you. No red slopes for me to walk on. This is an honor due to the gods, not to me. What man should set his foot on such rich treasures, woven by the hands of many women? Such pride is frightening to me. Honor me, please, as a man, not a god.
See as teeming with dyes such as these. You're no king of paupers. There are scores more souls like these within your house. Come for this one moment, like no other in your life, celebrate your coming home.
Madam Esther, thank you, but I'd rather come through the door with an easy mind.
Indulge me just this once.
Please.
If I would promise to give you a bath, wash the dust of travel from your body very slowly.
Would you?
Wash your hair. Let you put your head back in my hands and hold you there to rest.
Make it hard not to refuse.
Bathe your tired eyes with my tongue.
You go too far.
If the Trojan king had won the war, what do you think he would have done?
May have walked on slopes such as these.
Will you be humbler than the man you've beaten?
Yes, I'm right. Why be so insistent? Does it suit a woman to be so aggressive?
Does it suit a man to be so set against even the littlest desires of his wife? I think these red silks suit you. Then, too, does it not suit greatness to accept defeat with grace? And you, so accustomed to being the victor in all things, have had such little opportunity to show this form of magnanimity and accept this honor I would give you.
The persistence of a great soldier.
Yield to me. You, the victor, give me my victory too.
Since you are so resolved, here, help me, untie my sandals. If I'm to walk across such deep-sea treasures, let me feel it in my skin.
Here comes my husband, King Agamemnon. Home.
A wretched ghost. Tears and tears the skin. Then it eats first the flesh, strong and putrid shoulders, buttocks, back flesh, tendons, guts, and eyes. He bares his teeth, and from the cords upon his lap, calmly eats the remnant to the marrow of its bones.
What is this?
What are you accustomed to seeing these ports? Carvings of gold, silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linens, purple silks and scarlet cloths, every sort of citron wood, and articles of every kind carved from ivory, cargoes of cinnamon and spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine and olive oils, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, the bodies and souls of men and women. No more. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over this city. They will say, the fruit you have longed for is gone from you. Your country has become the home for demons. The merchants of the earth grew rich from your excessive luxuries, and all the nations of the world have drunk the maddening wine of your greed. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. Here I am! I stand at the door and knock. I am Cassandra, daughter of the murder king of Troy. If anyone should hear my voice and open the door, then I will come in and tell you what I see that is to come. Every sea captain and all who earn their living from the sea will stand far
see the smoke of her burning, they will exclaim, "Was there ever a city like this great city?" They will throw dust on their heads and weep. The music of harpists, trumpeters, flute players will never be heard of you again. No workman of any trade will ever be found in you again. The sound of a millstone will never be heard of you again. The light of a lamp will never shine in you again. The voices of bridegroom and bride will never be heard of you again. Your merchants were the world's great men. By your magic spell, all the nations of the world were led astray.
What nonsense.
On your shores, I saw 4 creatures, covered with eyes, front and back. And I heard one of the creatures say in a voice of thunder, "Come!" And I turned, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider carried a bow. And I heard a second creature say, "Come!" And out came a second horse, fiery red, whose rider carried a sword. And I heard a third creature say, "Come!" And there before me was a black horse, whose rider carried a pair of scales. And I heard a fourth creature say, "Come! Come!" And there before me was a pale horse with a rider named Death. And each of these 4 was given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth.
And what sort of civilized men and women are going to give serious attention to this kind of wild superstition?
There's more truth in poetry than in the mere rendering of facts of any matter.
This is nothing but a recipe for lunacy.
Now look. Now, I see children weeping, whispers in the house, vile plotting. Children butchered like lambs by their own elders. See what they carry in their hands, their own flesh, limb and rib and heart they hold. Children made to herd their own mothers and fathers to the fires. In a masquerade, a boy dressed in white, his face pressed to his mother's shoulder. A child cries out, and from her mouth comes a bloody foam. Infants taken from their mother's arms and thrown headfirst into the road with awful force. Child swung around by a soldier, his head smashed against a wagon wheel. Bodies clinging so tightly together, they can't be separated, even after death. A bucket pulled up from a well, half full of human eyes. Bones ground into powder and taken away in sacks. 30 sacks a day. The altar is prepared. A hunting net made ready. The treacherous waters poured. The bath is full. She folds him in a trap made like a gown. The despairing hands reach out. She strikes! She grabs him! She has murdered him! Agamemnon is dead! Now look and see what comes to those who put their faith in earthly power, to those who take their happy state for granted. Here your city stands in ruins, brought down in all her towering beauty, her massive walls, men and women secure in the comforts of their settled lives. Smoke rises up from every corner. The city is looted even me while it burns. Could this never happen to you? Look on Troy! Look on House of Atreus! And see on what uncertain ground the pomp of empire stands. Run then. Run to your own death. Do not live another moment if all you know to do is to contribute to the pain.
I said many things to my husband. Said I longed for him to return. I said my eyes burned with watching for him. I said I wept with joy to see him come home to me. Every word I said was true. Had I known you were bringing home this woman for your bed, I'd have longed even more intently for your homecoming. I only wish we had a chance to talk. I wish you could have told me, like a human being, what brought you to murder your own sweet child. One day her tears will catch up with you. How can a person bring themselves to kill another? I think, of course, I know if any person does. And yet, somehow, it remains a complete mystery. It's a nightmare, really. So now I've done all I was called upon to do. And I only pray to the gods who persecute this house. Now forget the past. It has no claim on us. We're done with it. Leave us alone. Oppress some other home. I can ask nothing more.
And do you think the gods have done with you? Now, you are a murderer.
An executioner for justice' sake. The same as any soldier. This man was a murderer, sacrificing his own daughter to his ambition and his cowardice. Whose life was safe at home with a man who would murder his own defenseless daughter? I apologize for nothing. I beg no one for forgiveness. Do you think I don't know what was wrong? Unforgivable? Although I beg forgiveness, I would cut his throat again.
And be yourself a murderer.
What would you have had me do? Appeal to the courts? What court will conduct a fair trial? He was a hero. And anyway, I don't know what could bring another person to kill someone. How could this be explained? What would have happened but that I would have been wrapped in chains as a madwoman, and he would have gone free to bring home some new woman into my house? I have 2 other children. Would they have been safe? Where were you when this man destroyed every shred of justice? That was your time to speak, not now.
Everything that was true then is true now. When the fabric of the civil order is